All right, we are back here at the Big New England Clinic. I'm your host, John Tierney. This is the 50th anniversary of the Big New England Clinic here in Newport, Rhode Island, and we have more guests for you. This time we have Harvard assistant coach Joe Lamb joining me and Kevin Stone. And Joe, first things first, great to see you, man. Obviously, you and your dad, of course, the legendary Tom Lamb, your family's been a staple in the New England football scene, specifically up in Massachusetts. Just some thoughts on this clinic. Great clinic. Keith Kenyon and his staff do a great job putting this together every year.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, thanks to you guys, for having me on this.
Of course.
Absolutely.
On the show. This is awesome. What you guys do we were talking a little bit before, John, about it, and Kevin too, just what you guys do for football in New England is awesome at all the different levels, whether it's the Patriots, whether it's college, whether it's high school. It's awesome exposure for the kids. It's just great to see. In terms of the clinic, this clinic is awesome. Keith does a great job. Keith and his staff, Keith Kenyon, Terry Lynch, everybody that's involved. I think it's two things. I think number one, it's a great way to educate a lot of the coaches and help them. And then it's great in terms of networking for a lot of coaches to come together and get a chance to talk to each other.
Going to ask you about Tim Murphy. We sort of had an idea the news was coming. It was still shocking. I'm sure it was, shocking once we get the official word. One, just working with him all these years, what was that like? Two, how surprised were you that he finally called it quits?
So first thing, Coach Murph, first of all, we as a family owe so much to him. He gave us an opportunity as a family. My wife, the way this whole thing worked back in 2005, my wife was coaching. She was the head field hockey coach at that time at Boston College. To be honest with you, at that time, I was still coaching at Yale. And then basically a year later, Coach gave me an opportunity to come back to my alma mater at Harvard. And so we're indebted to him for that. In terms of the experience, it was an amazing, amazing experience. I think my probably biggest takeaway from my experience at Harvard working with Coach and under him, his ability to sustain high-level success for a Division I program for an extended period of time. It's just, as we know, it's just hard to do.
It's unheard of.
And he was able to do it for 30 years. And I think one of the things too is setting an amazing standard and holding people to that standard on a year, both players and coaches, on a year in and year out basis. In terms of being surprised, yes, I was just so happy for him. I think he was excited kind of about this next chapter for him, and it's all great stuff.
And you talked about the challenges of coaching Division I football, but those challenges are magnified in many ways in the Ivy League. Not so much that there's challenges with the school itself, but getting the right guy, right? You need to get the right guy. High academic, high character. That's not as easy as people think it is.
Yeah, one of the things, John, we talk about all the time is fit. We've got to have the kid that's the right fit for us. I think it's twofold. I think number one, a true student athlete who is a student first, an athlete second, but the other part of that equation becomes that it's priority one is academics, but then 1A is football in terms of those are the two top priorities for them. The character piece, talk about that all the time, recruiting kids of high character. Harvard, obviously, extremely competitive, so they get in our environment. If they're high character kids, they're going to reach their potential.
Speaking of competitive, we say this seemingly every year, but especially since we started this site, the Ivy League is incredibly competitive. And mostly because you're all recruiting the same type of kid. Do you feel like it's maybe not at its best it's ever been, but the Ivy League feels as wide open every year as it's ever been?
I agree, Kevin. I think it's two things. I think number one, I think the first thing is I think the talent across the board in the Ivy League is as good as it's ever been. And I think that's reflected in the amount of kids that from our league that are playing in the NFL. We were just talking about two kids that I think are at the combine right now as we speak. And then to your point, I think the second part of the Ivy League thing is just the competitive nature where literally every single Saturday, any team, it's one of those leagues, right, where any team can beat anybody on any given day.
And it really has become that kind of a league because what I love about it, and I said this to you before we went live, Joel, about I genuinely love covering Ivy League football. And I tell people all the time, even if you have no connection to the school, get out there and watch Ivy League football. There's nothing better on a beautiful Saturday in the fall being in an Ivy League game because, first of all, 10-team league, it's extremely competitive year in and year out. There isn't this big gap between the schools. And you can sit there and say, all right, these are your preseason Ivy League teams. This is who we think is going to be good. But it's never like that. You may be preseason number one in the Ivy League poll, but then all of a sudden you start playing games, and that changes pretty quickly. I mean, you see it this year with Dartmouth and how they rally around Sammy McCorkle after losing Buddy, and they end up winning a piece of it. You guys win a piece of it. Yale wins a piece of it. It is awesome, and I think a big reason for that is great coaching and really, really good high-end talent. Look at how many guys now are leaving the Ivy League as grad transfers and playing Power 5 football.
I agree. No, I agree. I mean, we were like the team that we had going into this season, we were preseason, we were picked for fourth.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah.
I vote. I had you guys one.
Did you, Kevin? Okay. Okay, there you go.
Now, listen, I've known you for a long time. Feel free to tell me off. I would Yale, but
That's no worries. No worries. But I think, I mean, obviously this year more so, I mean, 3 teams, win this, basically share the Ivy League championship. And I think that from a fan perspective, I think the thing that's a lot of fun is you're not going there. There's not a lot of blowouts.
No,
Never.
So when you go to an Ivy League game as a fan, hey, the game's probably going into the fourth quarter. It might be coming down, it's a little bit like the NFL, right? It comes down to fourth quarter, last possession of the game. You're going to see a good game. You're going to see a good level of football. And then the other piece of it that's awesome is just the traditions.
Yeah.
We've got, I think we're 4 or 5 teams that we've played over 100 times.
Wow.
So you've got that part of it too, which I think adds even more to the experience.
And just to that point, I did Harvard Yale for the first time 2 years ago at home.
Okay.
Not the best ending, obviously, but just parking that morning at 8:30, you could feel it. You were around the stadium, and I had never done it before. It's one of the top 5 things I've ever covered. So just to that point, the tradition is ultimately what, and to John's point, we love covering the Ivy League for that reason. We're going to ask you about the new era now. Andrew Howard, I met him at the press conference. Seems like a great guy. What's it been like so far?
Yeah, Andy's Coach Orch it's obviously since Coach Murphy's announcement, it's been kind of a crazy, in a good way, kind of a crazy month. But Andy has come on board. Great guys, hit the ground running, doing a great job. I think the biggest thing priority-wise was the recruiting in terms of 2025s, just kind of getting up to speed from a recruiting standpoint. Our initial plan was to start spring practice on March 1st, but obviously with him just getting hired, he's pushed that back. We're going to start now the last Saturday in March. So then we'll get into a little bit of the football piece. We've got 1 more week. We're doing workouts right now. Then we have spring break. Then when we come back from spring break is when we'll start up spring practice.
Yeah, and I think that's just it. When you're so used to, Coach Murphy was here 30 years, and a lot of people don't realize he came here from Cincinnati. He was at what we would consider today an FBS Group of 5 school, well, actually Power 5, to Harvard. And I think it speaks to the Harvard brand. So you get a guy like Andrew Orridge who comes in. He's coached Power 5 football as well. He has a good sense of it, but he's got a deep background in this league too, having coached at Princeton for years.
Yeah, he knows the league very well. He does. He played at Princeton, coached at Princeton. Again, he knows a lot of, I think a big part of it coming into our league is the national element of recruiting. And because of his background and everything, he knows that piece of it in terms of we are literally, when you're at Harvard, you're literally recruiting all 50 states.
Yeah.
And that's a massive, when you think about it, that is a massive undertaking in terms of system volume and all of that. And again, with his background, he knows it. He's comfortable with that.
And I think that's such a big part of it is that people don't realize when you look at the caliber of talent you guys get in this league, it's because you're out there, like you said, you're nationally recruiting. Look at how many guys have gone through the Harvard football program that have been California guys, or guys from the Midwest, or guys from Florida, Georgia. It speaks to the quality of the education. I mean, the Harvard degree is as good as it gets, but also I think it speaks to the fact that in order for you to compete in this league, that's what you need to do. But you're also getting guys in your own state. I mean, you get a guy like John Mold. You get these guys, Brendan Sullivan now from CM. You get these guys that are really good players that are being recruited by Power 5 schools that are saying, you know what, I want that Harvard degree. I want the Ivy League experience.
Yeah, it's. I was talking a little bit about this in the clinic because obviously most of the coaches that are here are New England coaches, and we've got two guys that are both, to your point, both going to go off and play. Thor Griffith, who was a New England kid from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And then Jake Rizzi. Jake was a kid from Connecticut. Both of, as much as we were recruiting all 50 states, to both of your guys' points, we've got California, Texas, we've even got some Canadian kids. And then in this class, arguably two of our best players were kids that were within 90 minutes or, 2 hours basically of campus.
And they're both going to play ACC football now. Jake's going to play at Florida State, and of course, Thor's going to play at Louisville. So
they'll probably be playing against it. Jake might be blocking him. They're trying to block
him. Yeah. That's not easy. I mean, I covered your game a couple of years ago at Brown, and I'm thinking, watching Truman and Thor, I said to James Perry during that week, I'm like, good luck with these dudes. No kidding.
Well, John, I'll take that to another level. So me, as an offensive coach, we had to block those guys every day in practice.
Yeah.
That was a little bit of a challenge.
But again, it speaks to the type of player we see in the Ivy League now. So,
last one for me, and again, kind of the whole competition thing. Now more than ever, it feels like that Northeast gap, or the image of the Northeast football in general, is closing nationally. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel Massachusetts and New England is getting that respect now?
I do, Kevin. Yeah, I do. I like I said, I think so much of it, and to be honest with you, I think this is one of the great things about you guys doing this show and doing stuff like this is it gives kids from this part of the country a lot of exposure, and it gives programs, right, from this part of the country a lot of exposure, which is great. And I think once that occurs, and people start to learn about the level of football in this part of the country, they're like, "Whoa, okay," and from a great standpoint.
And I think you're seeing it too, where there's been a lot of talent that has come out of here that is playing Power 5, Power 4 football now in recent years. We had Don Brown on earlier, and Donnie, in many ways, started kind of the renaissance of national programs coming in here again by coming in here with Michigan, and then Harbaugh wants to come in more, and now you've got SEC schools coming in. So it speaks to the type of kids we're producing here. I'd be remiss here for my final question if I'd ask you about Dad. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, you're the son of Tom Lamb, a legendary high school football coach in Massachusetts, also coach at the collegiate level, offensive coordinator at Northeastern, was at Framingham State. First things first, you told me that he's coaching 2 sports now at 75, which is that you would think that's hard to believe, but if you know your dad, it's really not. But first things first, how's he doing? Your mom, and of course, they still run the Bay State camp along with Brian Lee, which is a destination camp for us. We love it. Adam got a chance to cover it last year. But how's he doing in 2 sports? I can't believe it. He's coaching 2 sports.
It's amazing. First of all, to answer your first question, he's doing great. They're in Florida right now. They've been down there since the first week in December. But as I told you the story, he's got to come back here the 3rd week in March from Florida because he's got to start coaching, helping out the Natick High softball program. So he'll be coming back. But he's doing great. Coaching softball in the spring, coaching football in the fall, still very involved. Mark Mortarelli, the head coach at Natick, has been amazing to him, keeping him involved in the Natick sports scene, which is awesome. And then he spends some time at our place, coming in to watch practices. sometimes spring practice will be in the morning. I'll look up and there he is in the 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
He's up there in the stands watching our practice from that standpoint. I think the biggest thing that just amazes, two things that I would say to kind of finish things off. Number one, the amount of energy that he still has doing this profession is incredible. And I think, to be honest with you, when I was growing up, it was kind of like, it's how it always was. So it's almost like I took it for granted. And then once you get into this profession and you've been in this profession for this long, and now you look back and see just the amount of energy that he brings to it every single day, it's amazing to watch. And he is a true, loves the kids.
Yep.
And is a true teacher. Yep. Which that's what we are, right? As coaches, extension of the classroom out on the field. He loves to coach and he loves to teach.
And that's really ultimately, like you said, what it comes down to, and that's what we are. But I think the fact that, again, I said this about Jack Martinelli. I mean, he's still a head coach in his late 70s, won his 300th game this year, and it's like you have to love it to still do it. But at the end of the day, it's about the kids. You still have to love to be around the kids.
Correct.
You know what I mean? You can love the X's and O's, you can love the scheme, you can like the coaching camaraderie, but it's about the players. And at that age, to still enjoy it and to now be coaching another sport. That's the thing. When I heard he was coaching softball, I'm like, wait, Tom coaches softball? When did that happen? You know what I mean?
You're not the only one, John, that said that.
It's
In a good way.
It's like when people found out that I coached girls lacrosse for 1 year, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, as odd as it was, I did. And I coached lacrosse after that. But I think it speaks to him and how much he loves giving back, that it's not just, at this point, you don't need to do it. He could stay in Florida an extra month. I mean, your mom is your mom. She's going to keep sending out the Bay State emails. Everything needs to be on point. But he loves being around the kids. And to be willing to come back and give up that time, that's all you need to know about him.
The last piece of it, too, that I would just say, I talked a little bit about this at the clinic today. It's like you have this Harvard degree, which I have. There's not a lot of Harvard guys that get into the coaching world. And one of the reasons why, the main reason why I got into coaching, because I grew up starting at 10 years old. I started on the sideline. I say this to people all the time. From 6th grade till midway through my freshman year in high school, my dad never lost a game. And then the other element of that was happening at the same time was Doug Flutie,
Right.
who went to Natick and played for my dad, was playing at BC at the time too. So it was an amazing time to be growing up in Natick, being part of this football thing. And the thing that my dad was, he had an amazing ability to win a lot of football games and also create an amazing student-athlete experience.
Yeah, and they did the same thing in Norway.
And just that balancing act of being able to be very successful and win and also create an amazing student-athlete experience, it's not easy to do.
And he set a standard, and I mentioned Norwood because he's still in many ways the standard there. When you take over, and I was a head coach there, when you take over that program, Coach Lamb is the standard. You want to get the program to where Coach Lamb had it or Coach Doherty had it. They're the standard when it comes to Norwood football. So, I think again, it speaks to him and the culture that he establishes, because that's the name of the game, right? You need to have that culture. Your dad did that, and for a lot of us growing up in this business, he was one of the guys we looked up to, and obviously we can't thank him enough for his contributions, and we can't thank you enough for taking the time, Joel. It's great to see you. Thank you guys too at Harvard for keeping that door open for us and giving us the opportunity to cover you guys. It's an honor and a privilege, and we greatly appreciate it.
Right. The last thing I would just say, thank you again. I reiterate what I said at the beginning. Thank you to you guys, what you guys do for football at all the different levels. It's great. It's great exposure for us, and we really, really appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right, awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Joel Lamb, assistant coach at Harvard. So we're going to continue here with our live chat from, great to see you, Coach. We're going to continue with our live chat here. We're actually going to ask Kirkshin to pull a little bit of intern duty here. No, we're good. The door. We want to get the doors because we want the other coaches that we're going to have on being able to recognize that they're up next. So we still have a couple of coaches here to go again. We're going to be coming to you live until about 1 o'clock. So we have Coach Kevin Kelly joining us next. Coach Kelly, of course, is the new head football coach at New England College. Coach Kelly, good to see you, sir. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Coach.
Appreciate the time.
Yeah, no problem.
First things first, Big New England Clinic, 50th year. Hard to believe. This has been kind of an institution when it comes to clinics. You've been here a long time doing this clinic. Just some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's well run. Keith Kenyon and I were teammates at Springfield College. So,
Wow.
Every year I think of Keith when we're doing this. And I've done this clinic when I was at Georgetown. And a couple times I was a pretty good distance away. I wasn't able to do it. But I think there's always a great turnout. And, the coaches are enthusiastic and there's some great speakers.
You and I spoke for a story probably 2-3 months ago now, just on NEC getting football. And as someone who went there, it's hard to envision that being a football school. But I do know how beautiful the campus is. What is your selling point and just sort of your recruiting pitch for NEC? Because again, Henniker is not a very big town. The main direction I used to give buddies if they came up was at the blinking light, go here. How do you sell NEC and Henniker in particular?
Well, what I did when I first got hired, obviously we didn't have a season this fall, so I didn't have any players. So what I did is I went out and talked to probably 95% of the coaches in New Hampshire, and that was very productive. But the reception I was getting was terrific. And the thing about NEC that's great is that we're centrally located, not too far from the border, Mass border. Concord and Manchester within a half an hour. Even Hanover, it's not far. Vermont, so we're kind of south central location, and we're going to make it into a football school. Even though we're not right now, but it's an awesome New England town, and there's a lot of character to it. And we're going to build this program where the university and the community and the alumni will be very proud of.
Coach, obviously you have experience in doing that and being at other schools and having that experience in building a program. What are some things in this changing landscape of college football? What are some things that you're going to take from that experience, your previous experience, and bring into this experience? Because as I mentioned, things have changed now. The game has changed with the portal and NIL and everything else. What are you going to bring into this experience from your previous stops?
Well, the thing that's unique about this experience is that initially I had all Division I experience, and I'm going to give a shout out to Salve Regina. Because last 2 years I've coached here. I was in the XFL. That fell through because of COVID. So Coach Gil Martin gave me a job here. I was coaching the DBs. So that gave me a good idea about how to run a Division III program. And that coupled with head coaching experience I had at Georgetown for 8 years. Salve was a great prelude to this position, and then having head coaching experience, I think, is paramount. You got to know what's coming. I've done the trial and error before, so I'm done with that, and I had a pretty good idea of how I wanted to run the program. But the 2 years at Salve were a huge help for me in this transition.
I know you're pressed for time, so last one for me. Northeast football in general, you've been around forever, but now more than ever, it feels like that gap nationally, respect-wise, is closing between Northeast football and that national kind of image. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, just look at where some of these players are headed. Last year I worked in New England League, and I had a lot of those players that ended up in major Power 5 conferences, Ivy League, et cetera. And there's good football, and that's in our program, my base is going to be New Hampshire. There's a lot of excellent Division III football players right in state, so that's going to be our base. And then obviously we're going to spread out into New England, and that'll be the core of our program. And then we'll take some guys from outer areas, but there's good football in the Northeast, and Division III as well. The CCC, the conference we're going into, is pretty darn good, and we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, you mentioned the league. Obviously, started by John Pappas, Mike Willie. Those guys do an exceptional job. They're one of our sponsors, and I tell people all the time, they look at it as off-season football, and some coaches are concerned about injury risk and whatnot. But what can you say about the league and how it helps players?
I think it helps an awful lot. The more you play, the better you get. Look at when I was at the U.S. Naval Academy, I recruited Texas. You go down there and they got 20 days of pads. Down there in Texas. Same thing in Florida. I coached at Tulane, Louisiana. It's kind of a poor man's Texas in a lot of ways, but football is ultra important there. And the reason there's good players, they play the game. And I think that's what Coach Pappas is doing with the New England Elite, is giving kids an opportunity to play tackle football in the spring, not just in their underwear. A lot of the 7-on-7 leagues, and that's the real game. Taking on blocks, the contact of the game, tackling, block protection, running backs, with ball security, all those things, all those little things you can't do in a 7-7 league. So it's been a well-run league. I was a head coach for 3 years in the league, and I had a ball with it.
And final question from us, Coach. Obviously, I mentioned your experience. You talked about Georgetown, Tulane, Navy. I mean, you really, truly have the requisite experience to be the head coach at a program that's starting from the ground up. Talk a little bit about how that process is going for you guys right now at NEC, and where you're at, and where you hope to be when you're ready to start officially playing games that matter in terms of conference play and overall play.
Well, one of the reasons why they hired me was my experience. When you're starting a program, it's the little details that you don't think about, and that's why this has been a real challenging and a rewarding experience, because I'm involved. My hands on everything, from facilities, equipment, uniforms, you name it, I'm involved with it, and it's fun. And the thing that's going to be rewarding for me is, I started out there. I think I told you that I had a small office. I had a box of footballs, and that's it. Now we're in a facility just for football. Got the uniforms. We're getting coaching staff. All those things are starting to prosper. And then also, as far as players, we've had over 130 players on campus, and so far we've got approximately 34 commits, and a lot of guys pending. So I'm really optimistic about the future of the program.
And real quick, I just wanted to add as a side question. I know I said it was going to be the final question. The school's commitment. I mean, football is a big commitment. No matter what level it is, we know that it's a big financial commitment. It's a big commitment for the school. Does the school have a long? Obviously, they're going to be committed long term, but do you get the sense that this is something that they see as being a big part of the school and the athletic department moving on? I think Kevin had mentioned to me that they were known as a hockey school, but is the school now at a place where they're fully committed to football and having it for a long time?
Well, that's what questions I had in the interview process was exactly what you're talking about. And what I can say is this: President Lesperance, he's been the president just over a year, and then within 5 months he started football, and that says a lot right there. Because new president, he's got a new board that he has to deal with, and like you said, that football is an investment that you got to make, and it starts from the top. So he is big time into football. He started, like I said, within 5 months of his presidency. He's a Dallas Cowboys fan, which we won't hold that against him. And he played at Old Dominion, so football's in his background. So if you have the support from the top down, it's terrific. And then just the buzz on campus has been awesome. I can't say enough about that. So it's exciting, and I think the players that do come and take a look at our place, feel that buzz.
It's funny, real quick. Wayne was my intro to politics professor back in 2007. Patriots lost to the Giants. I heard about it for about 2 months straight. But as an alum, I can just say I'm thrilled there's football in Henniker. I wish it was there when I was there, but best of luck to you, because we'll be watching and paying attention closely.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and hopefully in the future.
Yeah, absolutely, we'll do, and we're definitely going to stay in touch, and we want to make sure that our goal long term is to cover Division II and III college football as well. we're getting there. So my hope is once you guys are up and running, we'll be more involved in the D2 and 3 levels as well. But Coach Kelly, I want to say thank you for taking the time. And thank you for everything that you've done for New England football the last few years, especially coaching in the league. You've helped so many young men get that opportunity to realize their dream. And I think NEC is fortunate to have you, man. To get a coach of your character and your resume, it's a home run hire for them. So congratulations.
I appreciate it. Go Grims.
All
Thank
right.
you, Coach.
That is Kevin Kelly, head
Thank you.
football coach at NEC. Coach Kelly, thank you.
All right, thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
the time. Thank you. All right, we are rolling along here from the Big New England
Yep, thank you.
Football Clinic. I'm your host, John Sirianidis. As always, I'm joined by my partners, Kevin Stone and Adam Kirkchin. And one of the things that I think we probably need to do a better job of in the future is our location. Probably wasn't the best idea in retrospect, putting it by the door, but it is what it is. We wanted to kind of give you a feel for the background. We're also supposed to have our banner, but a certain somebody bought a banner that was too big. So we'll have the banner in the backdrop soon. I mean, no one ever said that we were really good at this. I mean, I know
No,
a lot of coaches and people applaud us, but
frankly, this is the most professional we've met yet. So
yeah, seriously. I'm waiting to get a knock on the door for our next guest here, but good stuff here in the second live stream from Joe Lamb and Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, and the one thing that we didn't ask Joel Lamb that I think is asked of a lot of Ivy League coaches is, are we going to see Ivy League teams in the FCS playoffs in our lifetime? Because I don't know if we will. I mean,
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't. You know, the one thing I will say about that is I want them to be in the playoffs because I think they can prove themselves. Look what Holy Cross has done, and they play Holy Cross. They're just good. But the one thing I will say is it makes that competition for the Ivy League title that mean that much more when that's it, when there's no postseason after. Your shot is to win the Ivy League title, and that's your focus. I would still love to see them though compete against the North Dakota State of Monday. Like, I would love that.
No, I'm with you, and I think ultimately that's why we talk about how competitive it is every week, but particularly those last few weeks when you're scoreboard watching every weekend.
Awesome.
That's the most fun part about it, in my opinion. Is that last weekend you might be watching 3 or 4 teams to see what they're doing. Like might be watching Harvard, on the sideline or something. So yeah, I mean it's just the competition there is phenomenal. I just want to touch on Kevin Kelly real quick. Again, John, you said it perfectly. They could not have had a better hire for someone to build a program from the ground up. And especially in New Hampshire where you're recruiting against UNH and Dartmouth, and it's a pretty damn good school. So I'm
From
thrilled.
his state schools at his level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, I'm thrilled that they have a program now, and I can't wait to see what he does.
Yeah, I think Kevin's going to do a terrific job there. I mean, for a program that's a Division III program that's starting from the ground up, to get someone like Kevin, his caliber, with his resume, to come in and to help you get your program started and get it off the ground, I think it speaks to the level of commitment by the NEC administration that they're saying, you know what, we want to be good at football. We're not planning on doing this for a short amount of time and then, if it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll revisit it. I think it says that you're serious about it. You want to get it off the ground the right way. You want to build a good foundation so that even after Coach Kelly has left the program, it's going to be an attractive program for coaches and student athletes. So I think hat tip to them. I think I think it's a tremendous hire, and I think it's a smart hire given Coach Kelly's experience. Getting back to the Ivy League playoff thing, I disagree with both of you. I do think you could see it. Unfortunately, the 2 schools that are holding it up are arguably the 2 most highest profile schools in the league, and that's one of the reasons I didn't ask that question. So, to me, could you see it? Yeah, I know that the appetite is there. I've talked to people around the league that believe that there's enough support for it that we could see it, but that support ultimately has to come from the 2 big dogs in the Ivy League, and until those 2 big dogs, and you can make a case that Princeton's in that conversation too. Obviously, they're one of the power brokers in the league as well. Until that support comes from those administrations, it's not going to happen. It makes 0 sense to me. It's never made sense to me A lot of what the Ivy League does make sense to me. Not having grad programs, once you're done, once your eligibility is done, you're done, you move on. I get that. But this idea that you can't participate in the FBS playoffs when your programs in other sports are participating in playoffs, whether it be basketball, whether it be hockey, whether it be lacrosse or others, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It makes zero sense, to be quite honest with you. You should allow your football programs to play in the FCS playoffs.
Yeah, and it's good to like. I think one of the things that we were talking about too was like, these kids who end up at Ivy League schools a lot of times have options at the FBS level, like as recruits, and then you see like every year now, you see some of these guys graduate or maybe not graduate, but are at a Harvard or a Dartmouth or something like that, and then go get a spot on the FBS team. Like the talent in the Ivy League is really good. I don't think people realize how good the talent is in the Ivy League. It's quite good because you're like sometimes a player will have a Big Ten offer and he'll go to Harvard because it's Harvard. You know what I mean? It's like so, and that's where I get frustrated with the whole playoff thing because I was like they could compete. It's not like Yale would go to the FCS playoffs and be one and done every year, or Harvard or Dartmouth or Princeton.
No, they have. Look, these programs of elite level talent. You're seeing how many of these guys are getting Power 5 opportunities as grad transfers. In fact, I'll take it a step further, and this could be part of the reason why schools outside of the league may not want this. To your point, you get a Harvard or a Yale with the talent that they've had in recent years in the FCS playoffs, they can win the whole thing.
Right, yeah.
They can win it. If not, they'll be in it for a potential 2 or 3 game stretch. So,
Just to both of your points, sorry, real quick. The fact that these schools who have a crap ton of money already wouldn't want playoff revenue, like ticket sales. Can you imagine if Harvard hosted a playoff game? There'd be 10,000 people there, if not more. Like, how can these schools not want the extra revenue coming in as well? That's what boggles my mind too. Is you're passing up huge gates. Yes, Harvard and Yale always get big crowds, but again, imagine a playoff crowd at some of these schools that historically sell out games anyway. So like, it's mind blowing to me. That's all.
it is. All right, which one of you wants to play intern
I'll go.
and open the door? Now, listen, the way we're doing this, we should have entrance themes for our coaches that are going to be joining us. We still have 3 coaches left to join us.
My God, that's Kevin Stone's music.
Ryan Carty, head football coach at Delaware, scheduled to join us, as is Tony Hurston, who's head coach of the elite Dorchester Eagles. And, of course, we're going to wrap up our visit here at the Big New England Clinic with Keith Kenyon, clinic director. Again, this is the 50th anniversary of the Big New England Clinic, Adam. And I want to say thank you to Keith and to and to his staff for inviting us down. It's Kyle Archer. It's been a tremendous honor. All right, we are now joined by Tony Hurston, head football coach of the elite Dorchester Eagles. Coach, good to see you, man. I'm doing well. Here you go. Got a microphone for you. And first things first, just some thoughts on the Big New England Clinic. How's it been for you so far?
It was very fabulous. Learned a few things to add to the tool belt.
Yeah, nice. That always helps, right?
Yeah, definitely positively.
That's the best part of it. And I've always said it about this clinic, Tony. It's a working man's clinic to me. You come down here. Everybody thinks that we come down here to hit the bars in Newport and hang out. First of all, the weather's not that nice, so you're only going to go out so much. But it really truly is between the classroom setting and then the on-field drill portion setup that they have here in the atrium. It's unbelievable.
Definitely. You never want to be the smartest man in the room, especially when it comes to this football stuff. You want to always be open-minded, continue to learn, and I've learned quite a bit in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I was curious, in your program, how many young men are in it, and what levels are they in the top order?
We're kind of unique. We have probably the most kids in New England in terms of youth football. We have fluctuate between 160 to 180 young men ages, we have from 6U all the way up to 14U, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
And talking about this past season, obviously a special season for you guys. Just get into that a little bit. I mean, when you think about the current state of city football in Boston, what you guys did in many ways, I think, and I don't think I'm overstating it. I've been in the game a long time. I think in many ways you guys revitalized it because you showed people that no, kids in the city play good football for one, and not only that, they can compete with anybody, and city football still matters in Boston.
Oh, definitely. I say it all the time. I mean, what is so many kids? We're like kind of right on top of each other. So we have 4 to 5 other programs within a 2-mile radius. So the talent's kind of split. So for years we've been able to go down there. Actually, that was our 19th time down in Florida. We came up short a few times, but this particular team was super hungry. They were invested in the program for some 5, 6 years, playing together, and just had a chip on his shoulder to go out and say we can't get this done. So it was enlightening to go down there and really seem to belong there. We felt like we belonged. We took it very serious. We had dinners together, film work. We just really bought in. They bought in and exemplified it on the field. That Boston definitely is to be heard from when it comes to football.
Was there any single game along the way that was particularly special?
Honestly, not really. Probably the New England Regional, where we really it's like one of our programs that we go against a lot. Hartford, Connecticut, a very very strong program, and it's kind of like the measuring stick where the guys really can see because they're kind of like set up to be like what you expect to play when you get to Florida. So the guys kind of measure themselves when we go against that particular program on that level. So that was like the one to really measure. We're ready to go down and try to get to it this year.
Yeah, we are joined by Tony Hurston from he is head coach of the elite Dorchester Eagles. Again, as I mentioned, special season this year for the Eagles. When we talk about player development, that's such a big part of it. And part of the success of your program has been, like you said, you've got a lot of kids playing, which is huge, especially nowadays where we need kids being involved as much as possible in multiple sports. But it's also the commitment of the people that are involved with the program, like yourself. That's a big part of it. And you guys have never been about, oh, hey, you know what? Pat us on the back. We're a big part of this too. You've always made it about the kids.
Absolutely. That's like our format. Our program, we say it's bigger than football. We stand on that. So it's about year-round, wrap-around, what goes on off the field, what the buy-in looks like for the people coming out giving their time. I say it all the time. You can't get your time back. So we have some 70-plus coaches that really, really try to make a difference in these young people's lives off the field more so. And we, like I said, we usually try to stay off the air with it in the cut, but a good pat on the back sometimes just make you feel good that you made a difference in these young people's lives on and off the field.
Absolutely, and you deserve it, my friend.
I think one of the cool things about the level that you're dealing with is you're not just trying to win games, you're trying to teach these kids the game of football. And they might not even watch a lot of games on Sundays and stuff like that. They might be, sort of just getting used to the game and what it means. How much is your job with these kids saying, okay, this is what the line of scrimmage is, this is what, a hard count is, all this stuff like that?
We take it so serious that we do football IQ classes.
That's awesome.
One of our other programs we started for the off season, part of our year wraparound, and we were getting calls like during the Super Bowl of parents that like, wow, the guys really are following the game there. They know the coverage is more and really, really getting into that part of the game, the IQ piece, because without that you kind of fall behind. And my goal is always to have the kids ready for high school. They move on. I don't want to go into high school being behind and feeling that they didn't learn anything. So I get calls when they go on and say, Coach, I think I know a little more than some of these coaches. I'm like, nah, you got to be coachable. It's just good that you do have that in your tool belt.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, to have that experience and that knowledge, it's only going to help them. I do want to talk about the state of high school football in Boston. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes through the years. It's been a struggle to get kids to play at the public schools. Why do you think that is, and what can we do to revitalize the game in Boston?
I've been really trying to figure that piece out. I work in the city of Boston Public Schools myself. I coached in Boston Public Schools for a couple of years as well. I think we just gotta, whatever got us to this point over a couple of years, it'll probably take a little longer to get it back. It's a few things, quite a few things. We've been working behind the scenes to kind of get a grip on that because it doesn't look good right now.
I think part of it is what some programs, high school programs have that helps them is, putting these superstars on a pedestal for when they're playing. Like I remember when I started writing at the Boston Globe, and there were guys like Sharif Hartgrove at Madison Park, Conroy White at Boston English, and it's like having guys like that as sort of like, oh, I could be the next so and so. I feel like that is something that maybe isn't as big right now, but I remember like back then, like South Boston had some great teams. I remember in the '90s, West Roxbury was a power who could have played with anybody. That
I played against him back in the early '90s.
Yeah, Leo Seibert.
Leo definitely put a lot of guys into the college.
Ron Stone.
Ron Stone, a friend of mine. I also coached at Southie a couple of those years. I'm embedded in it. I'm engulfed in it. I hope that we can get it back to where it used to be at. But to your point, we have to make it the cool thing again. I think that's what we're suffering at. You're looking at some of the outskirts and seeing the newspaper write-ups and just things as small as Letterman jackets and bags and things. Just that culture. We need that culture to make it a big thing again. I think that's what we're lacking at.
Yeah, I agree with you, Coach, and I think we want to play a part in certainly helping the game grow again in the city, and we want to do that because obviously it's important for the kids, right? But I think you bring up a great point. You want it to be cool again. Boston football mattered for a long time,
Definitely.
and we got to get it back to a place where, to your point, it is cool again. It is great to play at Dorchester or to play at Tech Boston or.
It's funny. We grew up. A lot of my coaches that are with me now played for different teams in the city, and we all grew up together. We played for maybe 6, 7 different teams. It was a big thing to have your shirt on Friday, being proud of your brand and walking around and supporting each other. And so we're definitely going to try to do our due diligence to push the narrative and get it back to where it used to be, from my perspective.
Who are some of the kids off this year's team? I'm trying to think of the kid. I know Zion Simmons was at St. Sebastian's. Is his younger brother with you?
His younger brother, yes, Kristen.
Yeah.
They call him the Gamer.
I've heard good things about him already.
The Gamer, to be honest with you, the Gamer's just turned 14, so he was 13 during the season playing against 14, 15-year-olds. He's definitely one of the best two-way players in the country. I'll stand on it. I got 28 years experience in this, and he's going places, and he's humble. He has his mind where it needs to be. He's always in competition because he got 2 older brothers that are we call them DNA. All 3 guys. they're the truth. The mother was a Boston College track star. The father went to play Alabama State football. So they're DNA and they get it, and their grades are superb. So keep looking at that name. We got a couple more guys that are outstanding that are going to be big.
Who are some of those other guys you want to mention?
We have Xavier, the X-Men. He's over at Dibs and them over at CM. Cy Cousins, Coach Beef, my partner, president of the program. His son, one of the twins, is up at Reading. And his younger brother. They're outstanding. We have AJ, who possibly can return, but he might go on and play some ball. The list is super long. I hate to leave out anybody, but we had a host of guys that can really play ball, and they're going to get opportunities. The phones are ringing. We're getting into the good situations. So out of our 27, we probably got about 14 that are going to be making some real marks in high school this year.
I wanted to ask you about that real quick before we wrap up. What is it going to take, though? And everybody has the option to go play wherever they want, but do you think that that's part of it? Do you think that one of the reasons maybe city football in Boston is, do you think football in Boston might be where it is partly now because kids are leaving?
Yes, that's, I wouldn't say solely, but definitely contributes to that, you know. I mean, you can't control that. Sometimes
No, you
parents just
can't.
want, you know, what they figure.
And you can't blame them either.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. I would love to see the city be one of our first opportunities. But right now, you know, sorry to say, but no. So, plus the kids just, they see those schools an opportunity to get to the next level, to be blatantly honest.
And the last question for me would be, I just feel like it's so good to see these guys really shine. How often do some of the guys who move on to Division I colleges and stuff come back to talk to the kids?
Actually, every single one. I can contest to that. They love the program, what the program's done for them, their families, off the field as well. So we're in contact with every kid that's moved on. And finally, we're pretty strong D1 and D2 now. We suffered in the past probably with in terms of our grades, but now we have the grades to support. So we got student athletes now, but no one loses contact with the program. We make sure we put them into all speeches, put them on Zooms, put them on FaceTime, just so they can show the kids that there's definitely opportunity. And they stuck to what we said, and they made a difference.
Well, Coach Hurston, I want to say thank you for taking the time, my friend.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. If there's anything we can do, let us know. I mean, we are always, we're football all the time. We're year-round football site, and we cover the Patriots, D1 college, high school in New England. So anything we can do to help you guys out, anything we can do to promote the program, absolutely. Let me give you my card. I know we're live here, but I want to give you my card so that we can definitely stay in touch, because I think it is important. It's something that is important to us as football guys. I want to see football in Boston be what it was once upon a time, because it was special. It was a big deal. You had a lot of rivalry games, a lot of great games. I played at Westie for a year. I mean, I think it's one of those things where it mattered, and I want to see it matter.
It definitely does. We're gonna get it back there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with help from guys like you.
Well, we appreciate it. Coach, thank you for the time, my friend. We'll talk to you soon. All right. And we've got a couple of games left. That is Coach Tony Hurston, head coach from the elite Dorchester Eagles. Thanks again to Coach Hurston. And we still have Ryan Carty, head football coach at Delaware. And, of course, we're going to wrap everything up with Keith Kenyon, who is the director of the Big New England Football Clinic here in Newport, Rhode Island. Again, I'm your host, John Sirenides. I'm joined by my partners, Kevin Stone and Adam Kirkchin. We thought this would be the best spot just because we wanted to give you a little bit of the, comings and goings in the background. And I don't know if the spot worked. What do you think? Do you think we overestimated it? Should we be in that corner right there?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good. Compared to Army Navy radio row, this is night and day, just in terms of the sound. So
What's your issue with Army Navy Radio?
No, nothing.
It was pretty good. We had fun. And we interviewed some great guests.
100%, but compared to the noise levels and the professionalism on our part, I feel like today's a better day.
Well, I'm always professional. I don't know what your problem is.
Fair point.
But I mean, I just want to talk about what we just talked about with Coach Hurston there, and how do you get football back in Boston? Because he just mentioned like 14 guys that are playing elsewhere.
But it starts with players. It really does start with players. I mean, can you imagine if Detrell Jones, instead of going to CM, went to
anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that guy's a stud. And like, if you see a guy like that carrying the ball on a Friday night, you want to go to that school. So I think it really starts with the players. The players have to, go there. But it's one of those things too where there's so many different schools that you can go to from anywhere, and so it's just a matter of 1 or 2 to 3 to 4 guys sticking around and going to another school, Bryant or wherever, but it's funny, like you talk about the 90s, like those games. I remember I went to a South Boston versus Cardinal Spellman game at White Stadium, and Southie just took it to them, and that was a good Spellman team. And it was just like, you see these guys, they didn't even have a huge roster either. It was just like maybe 40 kids, and they were really good. And so, I think, like I said, I think it starts with the players.
to that point, I think the biggest thing that you guys talked about with him was the older guys coming back. I think, yes, it matters to players now, but if those kids can hear the stories and the experiences from those other kids, that's massive.
No, I think it's huge, and I think it could serve as a potential motivating factor for them to want to come back and play in the city. I think it's wildly important. So, I mean, again, I think like Coach Hurston said, I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I think it's going to take some time. But I think that that's the case with football in cities across the country.
Yes.
I mean, unfortunately, we're seeing the game disappear in some schools. And I think in order for us to get it back, I think resources need to be added to these schools. I think we need facility upgrades. I think we need to make the game important again. We can talk about teaching the game to different groups and different demographics, but we need to also take a step back and recognize that there's a lot of young men in these cities across the country that need the game of football. It is a way out for them.
Yeah.
And it's a way out for kids in any situation, but it's a way out for kids that might have situations where there's tough socioeconomic situations, or, you know, they may not necessarily be in the best situation at home. This could be their ticket if they're talented enough and good enough. And I want to see more of an effort to put resources back into city football across the country, because it's that important. I don't think this is Kevin Stone-esque hyperbole here. I think it's that important.
Well, I do think that there's certain parts of the country where city football is very strong. Like if you think of like Miami, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
The public schools in Miami, there's tons of transferring, but you see some nationally competitive teams in those public schools. You know, it's a lot of it too is like, if they see a kid from their neighborhood go to Catholic Memorial and get a D1 scholarship, that's great. The guys have to feel like they can move on to the next level from wherever they go in high school. So, you know, I really feel like there's different types of football all over, and all it sort of takes is that sort of example to say, hey, I can achieve my goals if I stay at this
Right.
school.
It's the same thing as the public school, Catholic school, private school argument.
So let me ask you about this. The Pop Warner level, the fact that it's, I guess, becoming less and less of an attraction for kids and particularly parents these days, how much does that hurt?
Oh, I think it hurts a
I
lot.
was gonna say, it has to.
I think
right?
it hurts a lot. I think
Yeah.
these communities that are ending their programs and not playing Pop Warner, I think it hurts the game a lot.
Yeah.
I think it hurts the game a lot too with a lot of these communities that have gone exclusively to flag. And it's a double-edged sword for football, because at least if they go to flag, they're still playing a form of the game, and you can introduce contact when they get to freshman year of high school. But I think it hurts the game a lot. I do. I think you need Pop Warner football. But what I do think we need to do, and what we need to do to be smarter in the football community, is I do think we need to play flag up until 6th grade. I know that people are going to disagree with me on this. I'm not sure that they need to be playing contact football until they get to middle school. I think once you get to 6th grade, yeah, it's different. And I'd get rid of the weight restrictions and everything else. But I do think it definitely hurts the game.
Well, back when I was, I did an article on concussions when I was like maybe 7, 8 years ago, maybe more. And, you know, they were talking about, well, you know, is high school unsafe? And it's like, well, some of these kids get 2 concussions before they hit the 7th grade, you know? So it's like, I don't think it's totally necessary to play 4th grade tackle football. I don't.
No, it's not.
But I do feel like there are things you can learn in tackle football that you can't learn or maybe can't really develop in another way. So I do think your idea is a good one, because I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does too. We're coming to you live from the Big New England Clinic here in Newport, Rhode Island. It is the 50th anniversary of this great clinic. I'm your host, John Sirenides. As always, I'm joined by Kirkchin and Stone. We are scheduled, gentlemen, I don't know, are we still going to get? Okay. So we still have one more guest left, and we could take you now. Keith, if you'd like to come on board. Sure, absolutely. If you guys would like to come on over.
Yeah, this one, right?
Yeah,
Want me to grab a couple of more chairs, guys, or?
I think we're good. Yeah, I think you
John.
know, you guys can jump in.
He's the pro.
All right, we are now joined by Clinic Director Keith Kenyon. All right, Kyle is also here with us. Gentlemen, great to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
First of all, I want to say thank you for taking the time to invite us last week. Kyle reached out. We're flattered. We're flattered to have the opportunity to come down and to do this. So we really appreciate you guys inviting us. It means a lot. Feel free to grab the mics.
Gotcha.
If nothing else, it makes us look more professional. First things first, Keith, I want to start with you. 50 years. It's hard to believe. And I've said this throughout the day that this has been a destination clinic for coaches. I've been coaching since the mid-90s. And the thing that makes this clinic so special, in my opinion, is that it's something you always look forward to. Like when your season would end, whether it be Thanksgiving or after a championship run, you'd say, all right, let's talk off season. What's on the agenda? And you circled the first weekend in March. It was always a big deal. Why do you think that is? I think a lot of people think it's the location, but I think it's the clinic. I think first and foremost, it's a clinic. You guys put on a great product.
So I think it's a combination of both. I think people love Newport, and certainly Newport in March is more affordable than it is in June or July,
Right.
as we know.
Right.
But I think it's a beautiful hotel. People love to come here. But I think the difference between our clinic and maybe some of the others is we're kind of a family-run business. We're a mom and pop kind of store,
Yeah.
whereas you have some of your others that are corporate names, and that's what they do, and they produce these around the country. We do one, and we try to do the best we can. And Kyle and I both have, we have a lot of history with this. Chet O'Neill, who started this clinic 50 years ago, was a college coach and a great guy, and he started and built it into a prominent clinic in the Northeast.
Yep.
And Kyle's grandfather used to work with Chet O'Neill. They coached together at Colgate and Harvard. And so Kyle's been coming here since a young kid. And I started with Chet when I was the head football coach at North Kingstown High School in 1985. So I've been 38 years with the clinic. And then when Chet was ready to give it up is when I took it over. And I think we made the deal in 2011 and I took it over in 2012. So, we think it's a great clinic. We're pretty proud of it. But we also know that Newport's a great drawing card. But we also know that, as you said, John, every first weekend in March, you're going to be at the Newport Barriers.
Yep.
That's where the clinic is going to be.
And Kyle, obviously, you and I talked last weekend. You had reached out, and one of the things you said to me that was really a selling point. Not that you needed to sell me on it, because I think the world of this clinic. But you said that you want to get it out there now to this next generation of coaches. There's all these different forms of media and all these different ways that you can promote the clinic, and certainly I felt like our partnership would be mutually beneficial. But I also wanted this to be something where people got a chance to hear about this clinic if they didn't know about it, and to see how good a clinic it is. But you guys have really put a lot of time into the social media side of things and really promoting the clinic and getting it out there.
No, I think it's great for the younger generation. And you heard Billy O'Brien speak last night, giving advice to young coaches. And he's here socializing and talking to people. He really cares about New England football. And a lot of guys do. Joe Harrison comes up from Yonkers. He's a Springfield guy. And they love it. And they drive 5 hours to come and speak. But they want to continue to build this clinic just like we do. They look forward to it. And I think we do want more youth coaches. We do want, more full high school staffs. There was a time where there's 1,000 coaches at this clinic.
Oh, yeah.
So we want to have everybody understand that this is right here in your backyard. And it's a great destination. It's a great weekend. Come out and hang out with us, because it's a good time.
It is. It genuinely is. And I think the big thing is, for years, people would go to clinics and they'd be 2 or 3 hour sessions and they're marathon sessions, and you'd sit there. What I love that you guys do is you balance that classroom piece with the demonstration piece, which I think is so important, because one of the biggest knocks, even for me when I coached, I'd say, man, it would be nice if they would, they're talking about this technique in the room, but how good would it be if there was a place that we can go and sit down and either do a chalk talk or a demonstration? It'd be really cool to see, especially when it comes to the fundamental side of the game. But you guys do that, and I think that that's so uniquely different. And now you're starting to see other clinics kind of start doing more of that stuff. What made you? When did you decide that, hey, you know what, we want to offer this as part of what we're offering coaches?
Well, first of all, we thought that the atrium where we do the live demonstrations was a huge spot that was being unused. I mean, it had no purpose, and we're in this gorgeous hotel and it's not being used. And I came up with the idea and with Kyle and other people and said, what if we get some local college players to do the demonstrations? These coaches coach these kids up in whatever the positional group is, and we give, because most of us are visual learners, and it's one thing to see it on a screen and learn it. It's another thing to see it actually live and watch the coach making corrections of those techniques too. So it makes it really unique, though I don't think there's many people that do what we do. But the Salve kids love it. Kevin Goodmartin, the head coach at Salve, does a phenomenal job of scheduling it because, let's say Kyle is in speaking and he's talking about quarterback play. He might say, give me 3 quarterbacks from Salve Regina, and we're going to do these drills, and this is the field equipment I need to do it. And, it's kind of unique. We run it as much as you can. We try to, John, spread it out so every position group is hit during those live demonstrations. So we get enough offensive line and QBs and running backs and wide receivers that we spread it out that on both sides of the ball, you're going to see some really good demonstrations.
Obviously, the other thing that I think is so impressive about the clinic is the relationship that Chet had with these coaches, that you have, Keith, and now you have Kyle. The relationships with these coaches, they keep coming back. You talk about a guy like Don Brown. Don has done this clinic for years. Dante Scarnecchia has been here for years. These guys are staples in this clinic. Aside from knowing them and them being willing to come back, why else do you think that they see this as a place where they do want to give back and help coaches?
I think Chet started that years ago when, guys would fly in, they'd bring their wives to Newport,
I've done that.
You take them out to dinner, you see the spread that we have in there for our clinicians and things, and they understand it. It's a family-run clinic, and they want to come back. And, Dante Scarnecchia was in here with a young kid after his clinic in this small room, walking through things with him. So that's the type of clinic this is. That's what we pride ourselves on. There's nobody flying in and flying out after they speak for an hour. They're not doing it for anything other than to come here and be a part of it.
And when you go there too, John, to our clinic, what we pride ourselves on is we provide hotel rooms for all the guys that speak for us because we want them to experience Newport. We want them to get to know people. Yeah. So the hospitality room, which is just for our staff and our clinicians, that's the place where all the fun happens. Don't you think, Kyle? That's where the magic is made, in my opinion. And no other clinic will you be treated like that. And some of the larger clinics, they want, like Kyle said, they want to fly you in, and they don't want to spend money on you for a hotel room. They're going to get you out the same day that you speak.
Yep, that is very true.
Yeah, so we're lucky that way, and because it's a small business, we just. And I'll tell you too that Kyle and I know this because Kyle coached college ball for 20 years. It's not about just contacting these people in January or whatever it is to get them to speak in March. It's cultivating those relationships year round. Yep. And he and I go to games for the people that speak at our clinics. I've been to a lot of Bob Chesney games in my lifetime, and Donnie Brown and people like that. I go see their games in the fall because I'm retired now. But it's sending a text after a big win or a big loss and saying, hey, sorry, it didn't work out, whatever. And they know that we care about them. And it's on holidays recognizing that to them. So I'd like to believe that relationships are everything. I think it's John, you coach. You can talk about any technique you want in the world. It's always about relationships, always.
It always is, and I said that to Bill O'Brien before we chatted with him this morning. I said, the last time I saw you here, you were at Penn State. I made it a weekend with my wife. I convinced her to come down. She had an old college roommate in Middletown. So I said, look, we can go down. I'll go see Bill O'Brien speak. I'll go to some of the other speakers. We'll go out to dinner that night. I'll go in the next day. I'll be there for a few hours, and then you can go hang out with her, and we'll make it a weekend. And that's what's great about it. It's not that you can't make it a weekend at other places, but the uniqueness of this clinic is it's in Newport. And let's face it, you need that spousal support at home. If your spouse isn't on board, you guys know this, we've all coached, it's a challenge. And so that's another selling point here. You could say to your wife, hey, look, why don't we go make it a weekend? I'll go do my football thing for a little bit. You can go shop, spend some time in Newport. Your credit card bill is gonna be a kick in the nuts at the end of the month. But my point is, that's what's great about it, is that there's something for you and your spouse, or you and your family again, not to overstate things, if you wanted to go down that road and make it a family weekend.
And I'll tell you the other thing too, John, is that a lot of the coaches bring their wives in the hospitality room. They join us for dinner or a drink at the end of the night. So we want them to feel included in what we do. We encourage coaches to bring their wives.
Yeah. I mean, I would love access to the hospitality room. I'm gonna bring Kevin. Is that okay?
He's your
Kevin
plus
and
one.
Adam, they're like, yes, they're my football wives. So I'm gonna bring them. But in all seriousness, when you look at this business though, there's so much out there now with clinics and camps and material. What do you guys, how much time do you put into trying to keep it fresh? And I don't want to say reinvent it because you don't really need to reinvent it. It works. But how much time do you put into looking at different aspects of the business and saying, all right, maybe we can tweak this, we can do that, maybe we can add this, maybe take this out. How much time do you spend on that part of it?
That's all we do. I think it's because the nature of us as coaches, we want to be better. You know, no matter how good you are, you want to go to the next level. And Kyle and I, we get in here on Thursday, and we sat down and had a beer on Thursday night, and that's the first thing he said to me. Okay, we can't get stale here. How are we gonna ramp this thing up next year? We already have ideas of what we want to do, and you know, we always too, because we have such a network of coaches that we know. We run our ideas by them and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Because with the live demonstrations, I ran it by some of my prominent guys to say, what do you think? And they loved it. So, yeah, we have ideas. I'm a type A. I don't stop. I gotta try to make it better because if you're just going to keep it the same and just rest on your laurels, it's not fun to me.
No.
You know, let's take some chances and try to make ourselves unique.
Yeah, and feedback not only from people that come and spoke, but feedback from people, you know, who attended the clinic for years and years. I mean, that's so valuable to us. But I think like bringing in a guy like Joe Moorhead, like guys that are
huge
not
guy.
here every year, to be able to bring a guy in like that, that can definitely draw a lot of people and definitely make an impact on people wanting to come back and bring in guys like that.
And just some thoughts as we wrap up here in this year's clinic. I mean, obviously 50th year of the clinic, which is hard to believe because clinics come and go. Again, like I said, to open our conversation, it speaks to your product, your presentation, and the reputation you have. But just some thoughts on this year's clinic.
Well, I think, you know, Kyle would probably agree and he can talk about it, but I think it's probably our best lineup ever. I think the combination of the people that we brought in this year, I mean, we've never had three keynote speakers between Dante and Billy O'Brien last night and Joe Moorhead was fantastic. And then some other ones. I mean, you know, we had Jonathan DeBlaso from DiBiaso from Boston College, who's a young kid, just got the quarterback's job with Billy, who did a bang-up job. I mean, we got thrown into this. I contacted him on Tuesday night because we had a cancellation, and this kid worked for 3 straight days to get ready and knocked it out of the park. I mean, he was fantastic. So, yeah, I think, you know, the schedule, we had one glitch in the schedule, and that was on Tuesday, and that's when Jonathan stepped in. We love the idea that we did the videotape piece this year, John. I don't know if you knew that, but we hadn't done that before.
Yep.
So we hired a video crew from New England Tech that's doing all the filming, and then they'll do the editing afterwards. And then I'm going to let Kyle talk about our relationship with Teach Tapes, a company that is going to do some editing too, because that's the other piece we talk about of going to the next level. We think the video package is the one.
Yeah, so we're working with Teach Tapes. Steve Hauser is actually from Burnville. He's a Rhode Island guy. He's coached major college football. He runs a company where they edit video drills and everything for NFL video, and a lot of college coaches are using his stuff. But what Steve said to me, and it's actually his idea, and this is us just taking feedback, is everybody kind of videos clinics and gives a full length 50-minute speech. That's hard for coaches to use. So we're going to go in and we're going to pull out the nuggets, like the best of the best, and we're going to kind of edit it. And Steve and I will take the time to go through it and give people highlights that they can bring back to their teams and bring back to their coaching staffs, and which will be useful. We've got some of the best coaches, and pulling out these little 3-minute clips will be really useful for people. So it'll be cool.
Well, guys, I want to say thank you for taking the time. We greatly appreciate it. Kyle, I'm glad you reached out,
Absolutely.
and we were able to set this up, and we're certainly excited to work together with you guys again down the road. I know for us, as we build our brand here and we try to continue to build, I think that these events are important for us because we are all football all the time, and we want football in New England to be top of mind all the time. That's our goal, and between the Patriots, D1 college, high school. I think events like this allow us to get out there and get people seeing us, and it gives us an opportunity to promote our business, but just as much of an opportunity for you guys to promote yours, and it's just as important to us. So we really appreciate it. We look forward to working with you guys again in the future.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, well, that'll do it for this big New England Clinic special. Again, we have been coming live to you all morning long from the big New England Clinic here in Newport, Rhode Island. For Keith and Kyle, for Kevin and Adam, we will be back with you on Monday night on the New England Football Show. Until then, peace.
Great job. Great job. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you, guys.